Welcome to the Sacred Unweaving podcast with Holly Hope, where we embrace the beauty perspective as we unravel sacred truths in order to weave a more embodied human experience. Join us for these raw, open conversations of rituals and practices that can be applied to everyday life. I have with me Natalie, who is dedicated to integrative healing arts, and she specializes in alignment and holistic well-being. As a Usui Fire Reiki Level 2 practitioner, she channels powerful healing energy to restore balance and vitality. She utilizes sound bowls, sacred drums, meditations, and intuitive techniques. Natalie helps clear energetic blocks, especially in business or personal growth, by guiding them back to their centered, authentic self. She works with the Sun Quantum Reiki. She works with quantum healing hypnosis, and she really is such a unique being in being able to see perspective and lift us to a higher perspective outside of our normal everyday. So, Natalie, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you today, Holly.
So, our topic today has a lot to do with you belong no place and you belong every place, and finding that passion and that purpose that we have, the thing that we're here to do, and the people we're here to do it with, and how that process can look different for a lot of people. And so, I know that you've had such a powerful process in up leveling yourself and finding new parts of you and finding a deeper sense of belonging, just even belonging with yourself. So I would love to start out hearing a little bit about how you came into understanding this purpose. Or have you always known that this work that you're doing now was going to be part of your purpose?
Definitely did not always know that what I'm doing now would be part of my purpose. I like to say that I felt like a star that often was trying to be fit into a round, instead of square peg, round hole. I felt like a star trying to be shoved into a round hole. And since embodying myself and just walking in my authentic path, I feel like I am shining like the bright star, and that we're all bright stars, and that we should no longer force our pointy, sharp, beautiful rays of light into these little holes that society wants to put us in.
What was it for you that helped to shed some of those beliefs that you have to cut off all your points?
Everyone's journey is just that, a journey. And the trigger point for me was definitely leaving a domestic situation. And when you have nothing but your children and you have to rebuild, things get very, they get fuzzy, but they also get very clear,
Mhm.
right? And so healing from the situation that I had allowed myself to be put in started, I started unpacking the stories that I had been told my whole life, and realizing that I was trying to fit into a place that wasn't right for me. And everyone says when you're in your purpose, know your purpose, know your why. And and I never understood, like, okay, so how do I find that purpose? How do I find that why? Like, what is it? How do I find it? Nobody tells you how to find it, right? And it's because I now know it's because nobody can tell you what your purpose is. Only the divine can tell you what your purpose is. And the divine is directly connected to you. And so it's really quieting the noise outside and finding that time with yourself and really loving yourself and all of its brokenness, that you can really tune in to what is right and true for you and that purpose. And so through healing and finding the methodologies, the methods that worked for me, because that again is different for everyone.
Mhm.
And you know what, some I've always been really connected to prayer, but when I was kind of removing everything from my plate, I was like, well, prayer, like, is it called prayer? It's still called prayer. It's still gratitude for me. It's still I realized that we have lots of words for things. So words are very limiting, and sound is like a more um, comprehensive frequency that we understand. And so I've learned that words are different for everyone, and our interpretation of words are different for everyone. And so that's why one of my tools, one of my healing modalities that I've been drawn to is music and sound, because that is a healing modality, that is a language, that is a frequency that can connect us with the divine. And that was actually a huge part of my healing journey, not just for myself, but for my children. My children had suffered through this journey that I was having to heal. My children were deeply affected by the things that they had to experience at a young age and what they had to see. So we had a lot of mental health issues in our house. And I say had, but we still do, right? We're always continually working towards those pieces. And um, I'll never forget the moment that my son picked up his first little Tibetan metal sound bowl. He played that. It was such focus. It was like he was in his body, and he wasn't. He's always been a big dreamer. He often goes to a place I call Micah Land, because he'll be imagining, and it's like, oh, Micah, are you in Micah Land, or are you here? Like, come back, come back. And he was just suffering from some mental health issues. And we found that when he was really spiraling and really not in his body and like struggling, we found that if he could just focus on making the sound, because you really have to be connected to yourself to make those small bowls sing. And and sure enough, that was the thing. I'd sit him on the couch and I'd hand it to him and I said, make it sing. And it was just enough for him to quiet the noise and quiet the mind and focus on the one thing. And then that sound reverberates still to this day. He'll be like, Mom, do your sound bowls. And he'll just lay there. And I can just see his whole body get electric with the sound and the tonality, just clearing his chakras, clearing his energy fields, and getting out all the interrupters that are causing him distress and helping him to just be better. And so that it just became something that I loved, because not only did I love it, but it was helping those that I loved. And so then I just started offering it to others, because you share things with others that you're deeply connected with, right? And that work for you. And so that is kind of how I got started with the wellness and alternative holistic healing, was with sound. Now, growing up, I played cello since I was 10. And so I have a musical background. I've always really been pulled to music. And now I know why.
It's because it's the one place where your consciousness gets completely bypassed, and it's this connection that you always have. I always say the universal language is sound, more so than words, more so than even physical interactions. It's literally that frequency, because we all know that we feel and we hear it the same. I love that you
That's
mentioned
right.
interrupters too. The things that are interrupting the frequency, the things that are interrupting his life, and he has to stop and process in order to start moving forward.
We can call them problems or challenges, but really they're just interrupters or course correctors or whatever you want to call it. And sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees because of it, right? We get super focused on that interrupter, and we lose our purpose path. Our purpose can't ever be taken from us. You're not ever going to lose what's meant to be yours. And so when you get focused on those interrupters, your purpose and your blessings and all of the good things are still there waiting for you. It's just a matter of a redirection or a clearing. And so that's really what all of the tools, whether it's clearing a negative perspective or doing a quantum healing session, it's really to help you clear all those interrupters so you can get back to your purpose. And if you don't know what that purpose is, it's getting back to yourself, right? So you can quiet the mind, you can quiet the noise, you can quiet the stories and all the shoulda, woulda, coulda. People have said don't should all over yourself. I think I heard it first from Tony Robbins, but I we do that constantly, like as parents, as family members, as just people in society. It's like all of these expectations, but what about the expectation we put on ourselves as well? Like we're people pleasers and perfectionists, and all of a sudden it's like, why does that matter? Does it matter? Does it matter?
I love that. With my two grandbabies living in my house, I often will see something or experiencing something in their little family, and I'm like, oh, you shouldn't do that. And she's like, really? Why? And I was like, oh, that's an old program. And once I understood that program, and even my daughter and I discussed it in detail, I'm like, I love that you transcended that and that you've already said it's not your job to conform to the world. It's the world to its job to love you or leave you and let you be free. It's your job to be you. And I'm like, oh, that lesson that she got because of me doing the opposite, sometimes as parents, all the shoulds and all the pressures and even feeling like we don't belong in our own families because our children or partners are become so massively different from us. Like all three of my children are very, very different. And we don't even like the same things. We don't even like the same foods. And I'm like, how is this possible? You lived in my home for all these years. We did these things and I fed you, but now you don't like any of it. As adult children now, it's really interesting to see, especially talking about that belonging. But the understanding that it's about supporting and loving the unique expression of each soul and how big can you be? How muchness can you have here? Not I'm going to mold you and make sure you show up in an appropriate way. But it's interesting how much we have these programs of all of the shoulds. And if we are conformed, we are more likely to be loved, which is not true. And if our children or our partners show up in a certain way, it means that we are a better person, which is also not true. And it goes both ways. So I really love that you share that. I also love one of the affirmations that I use all the time for myself is what is meant for me is for me as long as I allow it. And that's when we talk about like the things that are the interrupters and in the way, something's interrupting, you're allowing it to come in. Because I've had a lot of people say, oh, but if it's for me, then it will be here. So why isn't it here yet? I keep doing all this manifesting and why isn't it here yet? And I'm doing the rituals and I'm burning the candles and I'm lighting the grids and all these things. And yet what I want isn't showing up. And it's like, oh, well, there's probably something interrupting that signal of desire, of manifesting, of truly wanting the things that are meant for you. So do you feel like everyone only has one purpose, or do you feel like there's multiple purposes that one can have?
That's a great question. And it really depends on the purpose. I think people can have multiple purposes and that they everyone is in charge of themselves, right? And so my purpose and my pathway is going to look very different from someone else's. And what's beautiful about my QHHT sessions is I have such a deeper respect and understanding for people's purpose and path because I have not met two people that have the same purpose yet.
Mm.
And I can imagine that I will never.
Mm.
And so, um, knowing my purpose, and one thing that I kept saying in my hypnosis was, it's not that serious. And I used to be like, what's the deeper meaning here? And my hypnosis was actually really freeing for me because I kept my higher self, my connection to the divine kept saying, it's not that serious, Natalie. It's not that serious. And I laugh every time I listen to it because um, it was just programming and things coming up from my past, not just this life, but previous lives, that I was protectors in other lives and I was bringing that energy here, but that wasn't my purpose this go around.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes when we're feeling conflicted or feeling a certain way, it's because we are pulling energy from past lives or past experiences that aren't ours in this moment, in this earthly experience, in this human body. And I think getting really quiet with oneself and having a quantum healing hypnosis with someone that is a facilitator that's strictly there for your benefit, right? That's one thing when I set the intention for my space, is that I am here just to facilitate your experience, because I'm not here to interpret. I am not that person. I am not divine. I am not source. I am only source for myself and divine for myself. And you ultimately have that connection and that knowing for yourself. And yeah, I think if you're feeling like you have multiple purposes, and then that probably is true. You could be here to be a protector, but also to have a specific family, or to learn a specific thing, or to heal ancestral traumas that have happened. Like, I do think that we are here to, we've made specific contracts and agreements to have this experience. And so I do believe that some people have more than just one purpose because of those contracts and agreements that you made before you came to this experience, right? So yes, I think that people can have more than one purpose, and they just need to listen to themselves and not let the outside interfere with what they're feeling and what they're knowing to be true for themselves.
Did you ever feel resistance or rejection as you're expanding in your purpose? You're like, this is the way I'm going, this is the direction I'm guided, and then had other people outside externally say, oh, nope, you got the wrong message, or no, you can't do that. Did you ever get those reactions from other people when you expanded your healing gifts of rejection, that you don't belong in that world of healing?
Absolutely. And it's actually a constant, because hypnosis is not readily accepted in the environment that I live in. It's considered, it can be considered demonic and opening oneself up in a way to allow negative energies to come in. I see it differently. I see it as we pull in what we attract, and if there's negative energy, it needs to be looked at, and we can only pull in what we reflect. And so it's probably something that needs to be healed. I am a facilitator of light, and so I don't invite any of that energy into the space. So it's a very safe space. But dealing with the rejection, again, I go back to, like, it's not that serious. I'm not here to change anyone's mind. So if they have a very specific opinion, they get to keep that opinion, and it's not mine to change.
Mm.
So again, I don't know their purpose or their pathway, or where they are on their enlightenment and where they are in their ascension. And until they're open to understanding their deeper purpose and path, and if they want to have that conversation with me, then I'm open to that conversation. But if they start to attack, then it's clearly not meant to be a conversation, and it's meant to shame or guilt me.
Mm.
And I just don't have time or energy for that. So I can love them where they are, and I can let them go on their pathway and be here if they would like, connection and a discussion. But I am not going to take it personally. I mean, it's work. Sometimes I do cry, and then I wake up and I meditate, and I'm like, it's, you know what? It has nothing to do with me.
Mm.
And I love them for where they are and where they're at. If and when we need to have a conversation down the road, then we can have that conversation. Because one great thing about this life is every day we wake up, we get to try again, and we can be whatever, whoever we want every day. And we can change our minds and we can grow, and we can grow in leaps and bounds in moments. And I'm a deep believer of that. Back to that purpose, right? Your purpose, you can completely mess up your life and be off your purpose, and then wake up and be like, what am I doing? And guess what? Source, universe, God, spirit, whoever you believe in, whatever divine connection you have, they are there to give it to you. You quiet the mind, they give it to you piece by piece. Because if we were to drink from the fire hose, we would drown. They're not going to give it to you in a fire hose.
Yeah. Well, and also I think
So,
it makes sense because you only can learn so much at a time, and it's what you're able to receive at that time with all the experiences you have, which is why I think a lot of us, as we're finding our purpose, it's very zigzaggy, swirly, reverse back, up, down. It's not a linear path of, oh, this is always what I was meant to do. I know for me, like if I look at my past, I literally have had people say, "Oh, do you regret this or that?" And I'm like, "No, I don't," because it was in a lot of the painful choices I made that were actually always on the path. Even when I was sexually assaulted at 14, I remember thinking, because I really loved Oprah, a lot of people used to joke and call me Holly Hopra. But I loved Oprah and I loved the inspirational stories. And I remember even at the time when I found out I was pregnant from that, I went, this is going to be one hell of an inspirational story. Maybe I'll get on Oprah. And I'm like, I don't know what young teenage girl thinks of that as soon as like something horrific's happening, but it was like, this is going to be part of the path and there's something good that's going to come from it. And so all of that heavy, dense energy got to move towards like, no, we're going to figure this out. We're going to teach others how to figure it out, you know? And even though I don't know if I could define my purpose in one linear statement, I mean, I have my own personal mission statement that I've had for 20 years, and that's to be a beacon of hope and light and wisdom. And so I'm like, that feels like it's my purpose. And that can look very differently in a lot of different areas. But I'm like, oh, even this horrible thing that happened still connects in with that purpose because you have to have the light and the shadow in order to have something to guide people to overcome the shadow. So I really love that you share that and that you share so much about working with the light. And yes, there's always risk of the dark, but working with the light is the focus. I even remember when I first started working with energy work, my own dad kept calling it voodoo and my witchcraft. Oh, you're voodoo. And then he was at a point where they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And he kept having these exploratory surgeries because they couldn't figure out what the problem was. So finally I was like, I have this thing I do. He's like, okay, do your voodoo. And he put barriers on it too. He's like, you can see what's going on with this part of my body, nothing else. Like, I only had permission to look at that one specific part of the body. And it was very much connected with, it was in his throat, and it was connected with the fact that his mother had passed, and that's who he would always talk to. That was his confidant. That was his person that he connected and told everything to. And now that she was gone, he wasn't able to talk and speak to anyone about things that he needed support with or to share with. And so he started developing these polyps in his esophagus. And once we cleared it, the symptoms started to go away. And at that point, it was dark, it was witchcraft, it was voodoo. But then, because of this experience we had out in the hospital parking lot, he then had a little glimmer of like, oh, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. And then years later, I ended up taking him to Colombia I was scouting out an area for a retreat, and it was his birthday coming up. And I'm like, you should just come with me. And so I brought him to Colombia, and I'm sitting there and I'm weaving drums, and he's videoing me weaving the drums, asking questions. And I just had a moment of, do you remember like 10 years ago where you told everybody I was going to hell for doing this work and you didn't support it, and now you're asking me questions, and He even had me make a drum for his wife's grandson, and he sent a video of him drumming the drum with a snake on it. And I was just like, wow, I never would have thought that this would have been on the path. But just like you said, going into that, this is who I am. You can accept it or not. And I did have that conversation with him years before that, where I said, you can love me or accept it or not accept it. But you don't get to say mean things about me to my other family members. You can say mean things about me to other people, but not my siblings, because that hurts everyone. And I set a boundary and I said, this is what love and respect looks like. Because I'm not going to stop and I'm not going to be shamed for it. And if you think any part of me is dark, then you are misunderstanding of what dark and light, any part of my work. Like, just take a minute and like look at me and feel me, and compared to years before, which one feels brighter and more joyful and more blissful? And these are the indicators that I'm not working with something evil and I'm actually working with God in a different way than you do. And so it's really nice to see that people can progress and they can shift, and we don't have to always believe in the same things. But it's more like you said, of I don't have the energy or the time to sit and argue with you. If you choose to believe something about me, you can. And you have that right and that permission. I also have the same freedom to continue acting in the way that's in integrity for me. So, and that can be really scary too, because we have all the fear of rejection coming in. But then I feel like every time we are rejected by someone, it's a redirection or something else is coming in to fill that space, and it's kind of clearing out the way so that they can.
Yeah, it's so true. When you were talking about that, or when I had first left my first husband, there were just, he was spreading rumors, and I wanted to like defend myself and really like, that justice inside me was just raging. Like, that's a strong core value for me. And I really have deconstructed that justice inside, because I'm going to be the villain in somebody's story, and that's okay. Because just because they misunderstand me, or if they it has more to do with them than it does me. And so I think if you're struggling with trying to defend your reputation, like, just be who you are, and your reputation is going to defend itself. And the people that want to think things about you are going to think things about you no matter what you do. I love the right now, like that main character energy. Or that's like what people are saying, like, be the main character in your life. But it's so true. Are you going to be the assistant character? Are you going to be like the
Sidekick.
side character? Yeah. Are you someone, like, your life is not meant to be someone else's sidekick. Your life is meant to be your life. And I have 4 teenagers at home right now. And like, we talk about this all the time, because they are people pleasers, and they've moved a lot. Their childhood, we are a military family. And so we've currently lived in the home that we're in for 5 years now. And that's the longest we've ever lived in one place for them.
Mm.
And so, like, friends, lifelong friends, that's not something they get to experience. And it's like every year at school, we're talking about making friends. And it's like, okay, well, be the main character of your life and spread sunshine and joy and kindness in your out of you. And don't worry about trying to fit in with that person or make friends with that person, or like, just be kind and be yourself. And this has actually been a year that um, they all have a friend or two, right? We only need 1 or 2 people to be like, okay, I belong.
Yes.
I Yeah, that was one thing when I was doing the practitioner stuff with you, that I was searching for community, because I didn't feel like I had that anymore. Because I had just like shifted so much that I didn't feel like I had people that I could talk to about all of this whole huge universe, right? And one thing that you have given me is that confidence to, one, just shine like a star, But also, I now have brothers and sisters that I connect with on such a soul level that's like community like no other. And now I see that community when I meet people. I can immediately sense like, okay, are we going to have a soul connection, or is this just this earthly moment connection, right? And so
Mm.
it's it's one thing that I've been incredibly grateful for with the practitioner training and that experience.
Mm. We've been blessed to have your beautiful light circulating and inspiring and sharing ideas. I love it. Speaking of sharing, I wanted to touch on, so in your human design, you're a projector.
Yes, yes. And that, so learning that I was a projector was actually a huge relief because as a projector, we're often told that we're lazy, but we don't create our own energy and we're not here to, um, our job is to observe and give feedback.
Mm.
And I have done that my whole life, and I've always given feedback where it's not always welcome, right?
That'll give you a lot more
And
rejection and abandonment trauma.
for sure, especially because projectors are supposed to wait for the invitation, but not just idly by. We don't just wait idly by. And but one thing that I've learned is I have to work with my energy, and when it's high, it's high, and when it's low, I honor that. And so if I have a really big event or something that I've worked towards, and I already know that after that, I am going to have to retreat and have alone time. And it's been the most freeing. Understanding my human design has been the most freeing thing. Besides, I mean, the healing and everything, but understanding that I can't go like everyone else. It's so funny because a lot of my friends, people that I'm attracted to, people that I connect with, they are generators and they're manigens. And I, yeah, exactly. I love my manigens, right? I love that ADHD. I love that go because they're up for anything. And I'm that person too, but I'm also the first one to go to bed. Like when we were in Mexico, it was like, I love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
I gotta go to bed now.
Which is good. It's a
And
reminder. Yes, everybody else should also go to bed.
and like the FOMO would get me, but also I had to honor, like I knew that I wouldn't be going on all cylinders. And then I just, yeah, it's not fun. And when when you're in your teenage years and you're running on pure adrenaline and energy, then you can fake it really well.
Mm.
But I'm not faking it anymore. And
Mm.
I don't, yeah, it's, I really highly suggest if you don't know what your human design is to find that out. And then as a projector, there's 6 kinds of projectors. And so recently I have met I always wanted a projector friend because they observe and they report, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, if I could just have someone observe and report, I would love that so much. And then so I've called into my life some really beautiful projector friends, and we're still so very different because there's 6 types of us. But it's been so fun to know know my children. Oh, it has changed the way that I parent, because like I have a generator and I have a Manny Gen and I have a projector. And one of my bonus babies is a projector. And the way that I understand them, I'm like, oh, if I would have known as a teenager what my purpose is as a human design projector, like, oh, it just changes things,
Mm.
changes the way I parent, changes my perspective. So
And the more we understand ourselves, the more it's really hard to see the fact that we're unique and we're different as a negative. Because then we start to see, oh, I have this ability to do this thing and have a perspective that nobody else is able to do. And so it's actually a gift. And the more I feel like we can look at our uniqueness as a gift, the more it actually does become a gift rather than trying to be and fit in all these stars into these round holes that we're never meant to fit into because there is uniqueness with it. Well, even in the reflecting and reporting and observing, like I feel like there's a lot of how we find our purpose and who we are is trying a whole lot of things that we're not. And so for me, I was definitely not meant to be the corporate woman, 9 to 5, dinner ready at 5:30 as soon as I got home. So it had to be done early, picket fence, like that. A lot of people are surprised when I'm like, oh yeah, I actually had a job with the FBI and I was waiting for my security clearance when I moved to St. George, and which was what, 10 years ago. I finally got my security clearance, and they're like, okay, your job is available. You can move. You're gonna be here, pencil skirt and heels and a gun. And like, yeah. Oh, no, that's not me. That's not me at all. But 2 years before that, when I had started that process and they were starting that extensive security clearance that took so long, I thought that's what I wanted. That was security and insurance, and I was making a difference in the world. And yeah, that shows success. And then now I'm like, oh, actually, I just want to frolic in the woods. And what's very interesting is my dear friend, the tarot fellow, Rick, who a lot of you have heard of already, he also was up for a job with the FBI at the same time. And so I find it very interesting that if we ever decide to deviate or zigzag, our purpose still remains. The souls that we're meant to connect with are still there. So we kind of laugh because at that time, it was, I believe, 3 to 5 years later when we met. So if we hadn't met there on this corporate success journey, it's like this weaving happened so that we would meet later. And we have had many experiences where we're like, yep, this is definitely, there's past life stuff here. We've been partners in past life in some form before because it's already done. Like the work's already there. It's so easy. Um, and that just kind of goes back to like the hypnotherapy for me when you were talking of like, oh, there's things that are not for this time. Like, I didn't need to learn how to build a partnership with this man who we had a business together at one point. We will again in the future. We do a lot of collaborations with, and spiritually, we're connected and answer questions and brain dumps and all the things, even in our dreams. But that work had already been done in another lifetime. That wasn't the work for this lifetime, but it was a gift that we got to bring in. So sometimes it's not always about going into your past to see what you need to heal. Sometimes it's about see what's already there, what's already a gift, what's already developed in your soul so that you can use it to expand and develop something else. So I really love that you shared those pieces of it.
Yes, I love that you mentioned like going into the past lives. It's not always about needing to heal something, right? But we do sometimes carry that forward. Like I learned that I was carrying that protector energy and that I didn't need to carry that anymore. And so, but I think that whether you do that through a hypnosis or through meditation or through a negative perspective clearing, I think that that comes to you in more than one way. And so if you're open to receiving the information, it's going to come to you. And you're going, like you said, you're going to meet the people that you are meant to meet because, you know, I have my children from my first marriage. I met my very best friend who is like my soul sister for like we are soul sisters. And I would have met her. It just would have been in a different time had I not married my husband who was in the military. Like she was moving every 3 years. We were moving every 3 years or sometimes sooner. Like how else do you meet someone, right? But our connections, there's so many connections there that spirit would have connected us in another way. Um, so the people that are meant for us to be big players in our life to help us to grow, they're going to come into our life one way or another because the thing about my best friend is we continue to be on this same journey, this same growth expansion throughout years. Like, let's see, in last year, I'm like, what year are we in? In 2024, she and I actually celebrated our 20-year best friend anniversary. Like,
Aw.
I don't have that in a marriage, but I have that in a best friend. And I can literally say she's been my best friend for 20 years. And like, we have these relationships and these people that we're meant to know and meant to connect with. And some people, we knew that coming into this life, and other people just get to be bonus players. And how beautiful is that as well, right? Doesn't mean that every person that you're close to is has been a big player always, but we get to choose. That's part of our choice. That's part of our will, and choosing who gets to be big players in our life. I think that's important for people to understand too.
Yeah. Do you find that in the quantum healing hypnosis that sometimes these big players will come through in forms and kind of reveal themselves that way? Have you ever had
Yes,
something like that?
yes. So some people will ask, do I have soul contracts with specific people in their life? And I have people that have had, like, their siblings have been partners in previous lives. Their partners have been their siblings in previous lives. Their um, their children have been their parents in previous lives. So we have major players. I've had people that are not currently with us come through and say, I'm here as a guardian angel. I'm here to love and support. I've had people, yeah, it was interesting because I asked about people in my life, and I'm not going to share um, just because it is so personal. But I really, if you're wondering if they are a big player in your life, more than likely they are. More than likely, yes. You knew that you were going to meet them in this life, and you knew that you were going to grow and have these experiences together. And I believe that's true even for you and I, Holly. Like, the moment I met you, I knew that there was something there. And I know it took, years before I did anything with you, but even the people I went to Mexico with, I know that I'm deeply connected with them. I know that
So
I
many
have,
synchronicities, yes.
yes, yes. And it's just so incredible how we're brought together. And our choices always decide how that closeness will be on this journey. And um, so you always have to opt in, right? And it takes both people to opt in for the connection to stay strong. And so it's not a matter of, purpose is not about like giving up your free will, and it's not about giving up your choice here on this journey. You always have choice. Um, but how beautiful, instead of worrying about what we lack, is like change that worry into, well, what can I create today?
Mm.
How big, how beautiful can this life get? And just ask, ask, ask. That's the biggest thing, is like, if you want more connection and more people, deeper relationships in your life, ask for it. Abundance comes in more than just money. I know people are like, I want to be abundant. And it's like, well, abundant in what? Abundant in joy, abundant in connection, abundant in, I mean, abundance means so much. You've got to get really, really clear on what you're asking the universe. Again, words are so limiting, right? Maybe put it into a song and then the universe will deliver deeper and wider.
Yes. Oh, I agree. Well, and anything you put music with carries the frequency stronger. That's why it works for memory retention and emotional release and all of those things. So, oh, how delicious. So many wonderful things. I just had one more question, because it's something that I have been asked before when it comes to hypnotherapy. So I want to just ask this question, and you may have already kind of answered it, but how do you know that the person you're communicating with when under hypnosis is your higher self or your ego or your unconscious programs? Does one differentiate between those?
As the facilitator, we ask.
Mm.
So there are things when we're hypnotized that we're in the theta state. And when we're in the theta state, you go to the theta state all the time. So one thing about hypnosis is you go there all the time. In the middle of the day when you're zoned out, stuck in traffic, you're in theta state. So you go there all the time. It's your dream state. It's the closest to um, the veil, spirit, whatever you want to call it. That is when you're there. You're on the same frequency as source, universe, the collective. So when you're in theta state, if I feel like I'm not connected to someone's higher self, their divine source, then I'll ask, oh, who am I speaking to? And then they'll tell me. And if they don't want to tell me, then there are ways that I can navigate through that. But usually they always tell me who they are.
Mhm.
And so the highest self, the divine self, um, you can just tell as a facilitator, I can tell usually that it is their higher self and their divine self because the frequency of love, when we talk about that unconditional love, when I get to, that's one thing I love about facilitating is that frequency of love is real and we are so loved. We are so loved. And when you are talking to your higher self, that love is radiating out of oneself. And the love that they just want you to know how incredibly perfect and divine you are, and that you can create anything, and that you don't need to fear. Like the fear not is real. Like love, when you're in your divine self and connected, that is the overwhelming theme through a lot of sessions is just how much you are loved. They need to know how much they are loved, how beautiful they are. Just divinely energy, they're just divine energy. We are all just pure divine, brilliant energy here to create whatever our soul desires. I have worked with people that suffer with depression and they haven't felt joy in this life. And when they connect with their higher self, I ask them to fill their whole body with that energy of love so they know what that feels like in this body. And then I ask them to put a visualization in their head and just to give them that. So when they come back into their consciousness, ego knows that they are loved. Ego knows how loved they are and that they come from a source of love, and that even though they haven't felt it in their life, they can feel it moving forward because they are connected to themselves. And so they can go and connect to that anytime they want. It doesn't have to come from anyone else because they are divine love just of themselves.
It is so beautiful. And when we connect with that frequency of love, we belong everywhere and nowhere. So, oh, this has been such a beautiful share and discussion. I love hearing your heart and just the integrity and love that you pour into so much of what you offer. So thank you for being on. If
Thank
people
you.
want to find you, they can go to my website, thebeautyperspective.com/practitioners. Is there any other way you would like to have people get in touch with you?
So, my website, Desert Dwelling Living, you can go to offered services if you'd like to schedule with me, or I'm on Instagram and Facebook. And so, Natalie Ruth Wellbeing is also a place that I'm at for just my wellness. If you go to Desert Dwelling Living, you might get a lot of 3D realtor stuff. But just know that on the website, you can find all the wellness offerings that I do.
Beautiful. I love how you bridged and incorporated that. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that on the next time we chat.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being on. Thank you for listening to the Sacred Unweaving podcast. Thank you for those of you who listened in, and looking forward to hearing how you unweave and unravel so much of your own journey as you connect and align with your own purpose and know that you belong with all the love. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Natalie.
Thank you.